Guys, welcome to another weekly roundup from me, Matt Haycox. I'm back in Dubai, feeling fresh and drinking my Dr. Pepper. I think two of my creature comforts of Dubai. A is getting a shave, and B is having this Dr. Pepper in the supermarket below my house. I tell you what, I mean, you could take most things away from me, but the one luxury or necessity that I always need to keep is having a barber on tap. And I think it's quite a Middle Eastern thing, but just to be able to walk into the barber, get a shave, get a face wax, get a haircut, do it like 2 or 3 times a week, like literally 2 or 3 times a week. And I haven't been for 2 weeks while I've been travelling. So in my mind, my hair's like grown full Brian May / mullet. But anyway, I feel fresh. We're back in action. So if you've not been to one of these weekly roundups before, I used to do them a lot. About a year or so ago, I always got good feedback and I just never kept it consistent enough. So we started to bring it back again. Recorded one 2 weeks ago, actually 2 weeks ago it wasn't last week, with my friend Jamie Barr. And I'm going to do a few with people and I'm going to just do a few on my own, but I'm always going to make them a consistent Sunday thing again now anyway. So what have I been up to? If you follow me on social media, you'll see or you'll know that I've just got back from Croatia. Just had a really, really mega trip to Croatia. And I love traveling, but it is great to be home. However, Croatia was a fantastic trip. I'd never been there before. Like I said, if you'd seen the trip, I went on this fantastic super yacht. It was like, how big was it? I think it was 49 meters, 50 meters, which is like, 160, 170 feet, I think. Massive, massive boat. I think it had 12 bedrooms on there, maybe 14, 12 or 14 bedrooms, 3 decks, loads of toys. And it was a trip that I've had it booked for nearly a year, actually. A friend of mine over here in Dubai, he's a super yacht broker, and obviously he does yacht brokering, yacht sales, charters, etc. But a couple of times a year, he'll book a big boat and chop it up between his network, see if anyone wants to chip in and pay for a bedroom, which is effectively what we did. I was there with Elena for half the trip, and she had to go off to Finland to retrieve the baby and go to her mum's 50th birthday. I stayed on for the end of the trip. There was 2 or 3 people I knew there, and there was quite a few people I didn't know there. I think for me it was a perfect combination of A, getting to experience a new place, and B, getting to go on a big boat that I wouldn't normally probably get the chance to go on, because I mean, if you're taking a boat like that on your own, it's, well, I'll tell you what it was exactly. It's 120,000 euros a week for the boat, plus you typically pay about 30% APA, which is boat lingo for advanced provisioning allowance. That's the kind of money that you pay on deposit to cover all the out-of-pocket expenses, food, petrol, anything else you might need to pay for. And then there's typically a 10% tip on top. So you've got 40% on top of your 120, which is, what is the maths on that? That is another 48 grand on top of your 120. It's like 170 grand for the week. So not cheap. So it was good to be able to chip it up with some other people and be able to get the chance to experience that and go to Croatia. Beautiful, beautiful place. I do a lot of these trips where I would consider them half pleasure and half networking. I say networking, whether that's to bond with people I already know, or whether it's to kind of get the chance to meet people that I haven't already met. But typically if you're going on these kind of trips that cost that kind of money, even the pro rate version of that kind of money, you get to meet other successful people, whether that's interesting entrepreneurs, whether it's business owners, whether it's athletes, celebrities, however people have made the money, but they all tend to be interesting and successful in some way. I mean, earlier this year I went to San Moritz. That was an American Express black card trip. Again, similar thing. They arrange it, chop it up, and you pay on a per head basis. But I got to go to a fantastic hotel in San Moritz. I went to the Winter Polo, did some really cool things, but also met some very wealthy people, some successful people. And whether or not I get to do deals with these people is not so much the point. For me, it's more the chance to meet, to talk, to learn things from them, to expand my mind in some kind of way. I mean, if you look at the people who went on this trip, quite a few young guys actually. It took me back to my poker days when all the youngsters who were making money from poker were all hanging out in Vegas and living it large and spending well. There seems to be quite a proliferation of young people in the e-commerce and Google Ads space at the moment. Well, not just Google Ads, but paid ads in general. So there's a few people on the trip who did either e-commerce or ran marketing agencies where they do Google ads, Facebook ads, etc. for e-commerce people. Met a guy who's got probably the world's biggest or world's most trafficked yacht brokerage site. We had some interesting chats about marketing and AI and SEO. Who else was there? There's a guy who used to be in finance, but he now has like a biotech type business. Successful French real estate entrepreneur who also has a training business back in France, you know, a couple of 100,000 followers on Instagram, got a crowdfunding platform, sells courses, builds real estate. So all kinds of different people. So, you know, a lot to talk about, a lot to learn, and to just do it in a good, fun environment. What else did I do when I was there? I mean, listen, you know, if you saw the videos, you probably saw a lot of partying going on out there. I actually wasn't doing too much partying. I think as Elena will probably attest to, I wasn't doing any. That's why she thinks I'm so boring. I like to do a lot of walking and exploring in these places. I mean, I've always got calls to make, and I like to. One of the things I learned during COVID, one of the things I started doing during COVID was to go walking whilst making my calls. I used to wake up in the morning, and obviously, you know, we were housebound with no office, and I'd have my phone fully charged, and I'd put my headset on and I'd go out walking, and I wouldn't come home until my battery was dead, which was probably like 3.5 hours. I'd charge the battery up and, you know, go out and do the same again. So that really kind of got me into walking. You know, I like to kind of explore, get my steps in and make my calls at the same time. So I was doing a lot of walking around these Croatian islands, making calls, listening to some podcasts, listening to some audiobooks. And I was also doing a bit of reading out there. It's a while since I've read a physical book. I've been doing most of my reading from audiobooks lately. But I started reading the Elon Musk biography by, I think it's Walter Isaacson's, the latest one, whichever one it is anyway. Big fat thing, about 500 or 600 pages. He's the same author who wrote the Steve Jobs biography, which I haven't yet read, but written this book in a very good format. Actually, I normally find the massive books super overwhelming. I think it gives me PTSD from having to read Lord of the Rings and all those kind of books when I was at school. And, you know, big thick books, small words, no pictures, and it wasn't really my thing. I got this book, I thought, oh God, it's going to be super overwhelming. But the way he writes it, each chapter is probably only 4 or 5 pages. There's normally a picture, like a big baby saying, aren't I? There's normally a picture, and it's, you know, it's kind of to the point, because one of the things I always find in biographies is I think authors quite often concentrate too much on the younger years of these entrepreneurs, business owners, you know, whoever they're writing the biography on, which personally I'm just not interested in. You know, I mean, if whoever the subject of the biography is, what they did at 2 years old, 3, 4, 5 years old, I really couldn't give a fuck on, and doesn't probably add any value to what happens in the rest of their life. I think, you know, from the years of 0 to 18, probably you could maybe just write one chapter that sets the scene, gives a couple of key events that maybe gives a bit of the flavour as to why they've got the mindset that may have started to make them successful in a later life, but then just get on with it. And Walter has done that very well with Elon. And I mean, I'm probably a third of the way into the book. You know, we've been through PayPal, we've been through, what was that? His first business was called Zip2. So we've been through Zip2, we've been through PayPal, we're now on to Tesla and SpaceX, and there's lots more to go. A couple of interesting takeaways. I mean, I'll do a proper review on the book when I finish, but I think 2 interesting things with Elon is, one, I mean, he challenges everything. I mean, absolutely everything. You know, whether that's because he genuinely knows better than the person doing it, or whether it's because he just thinks that the reason or the rule is stupid. You know, maybe that's because it feels so expensive, or because it feels so slow, or maybe he's just doing it because he's that, you know, demanding, domineering, you know, autistic type character. I don't know, but whatever the reasons, he challenges absolutely everything. And you tend to have found in the book that whilst everyone pushes back at his challenges, saying, you know, what you're asking for is too unrealistic, 8 times out of 10, 9 times out of 10, he gets what he wants, and the people who said it wasn't possible find out that it is possible. And whether that's taking a 6-month typical time scale, and he says it has to be done in 6 weeks, whether that's taking a part, you know, that used to cost 50 grand, and he says, well, you need to make it for 1,500 quid. He always seems to get there, or even if he doesn't get all the way there, he gets, you know, substantially the way there. And he developed this thing which is called the Idiot Index. I'll probably butcher this, but, you know, he's basically saying the greater value of the Idiot Index is signified by how much more expensive the finished product is than just the sum of the raw parts. So, for example, if there was, you know, £100 worth of parts and the finished product was selling for, say, £120, that might be quite low on the idiot index. If it's £100 and it's selling for 10 grand, that might be super high on the idiot index. I mean, from owning a boat and from spending a lot of time involved in boats and yachting and etc., I've seen a lot of that myself, where, if you bought a fridge for the house, it might be a couple £100. If you buy a fridge for the boat, they might want 2 grand for the same thing, and it's normally just because they can, or because they think you've got a boat, you will pay more, you can pay more. And even when you're actually travelling on boats, like if you ask for a massage, this happened to me in France a few times. I'd book a masseuse and they'd say, oh, it's whatever, €150 for the hour for the massage. They think they're coming to a hotel room. Then when you tell them they're coming to a boat, they tell you it's 400. Well, for fucking what? What's the extra 250 for? Oh, well, because you're on a boat. I'm on a boat that's next to the hotel that you would have come into for 150. Like what is the difference? I guess that's like another example of that idiot index, that things just become the norm, and he pushes back on everything, he challenges everything. I think it's a very important, an important thing for entrepreneurs to learn, to challenge those things. Obviously the word disruptor, is a very common word nowadays. People disrupting industries, taking legacy businesses, taking legacy industries, and disrupting them in some way. And normally that means that you're doing something quicker, you're doing something without all the kerfuffle and the bullshit, and you're doing it cheaper. Obviously banking's a prime candidate for that. Where things have been very slow, very expensive. You now move to the quick bank accounts, the cheap bank accounts. It's been done with disrupting taxi services, and bringing something like Uber to be quicker and cheaper, and more people doing it. But yeah, that's a quick takeaway from the Elon book. But when I've finished reading it, I will give you the full skinny. What else has been going on? If you've ever watched any of these or listened to any of these roundups before, you'll know that I often talk about suing or being sued. And I think in the multiple businesses that I've run and own, or have run and owned over the years, I have been the subject of literally hundreds of pieces of legal action. That's both sides. That's not just hundreds of times of people attacking me. I'm in the lending business, I'm in the investing business. Therefore, very often I have to take legal action against other people, sue other people for not paying money that they should have paid. Just as a complete aside, it is normally my strategy when deals go wrong to try and avoid legal action as much as possible, because ultimately it's time consuming, it's expensive, and it doesn't necessarily get you the outcome that you want. We can all talk about contracts, pieces of paper, the way the law does work or the way the law should work, etc. But that doesn't still mean that you're going to get what you want. And if I, for example, had lent money to somebody and had a charge over their house, it's very easy to go, oh well, they haven't paid, I'll just take the house off them. But it really isn't that simple in practice, and there's many things that can go wrong along the journey to mean that they'll stay in that house longer than expected. Maybe I budgeted it taking them 6 months to get rid of them, and it takes 12 months, 18 months, 24 months. That's all time that I'm still accruing interest on my loan that's out the door, and there could become a time when ultimately the house isn't worth as much as I'm owed for it. In those instances, it's normally better to try and avoid legal action. Also, there's times when it's important to take a stand to prove a point. Whether that's somebody that you're suing that you just think, fuck it, I'm just going to sue them anyway, just to prove that a point that they shouldn't be doing this, and I'll make sure that nobody else wants to mess with me. And it works the other way around as well, that sometimes you might be getting sued and it would be just so much quicker and easier to settle, but because it's kind of morally wrong, or because you feel in your situation it's morally wrong that you're getting that claim against you, maybe you do feel you have to take a stand on it. In one situation, and that's quite prevalent with me, is in employment tribunal stuff. Now, I do have to say that over the years, I'm pretty surprised how few employment tribunals I've had, given the number of people I've employed and worked with and things over the last 20 years. I mean, I've literally employed hundreds, if not thousands of people since I started in business in 1998, 1999. And I've had less than 2 handfuls, probably only just 1 and a bit of a handful of actual, going all the way to an employment tribunal type fallouts with staff. And there's been times where, listen, if I fucked up, if we've done something as an organisation incorrectly, then, I think we've just got to take that on the chin and swallow it. But there's times we've been sued by people where they've asked for an amount of money, and it would have been a lot cheaper for me to pay them that money than it would be for me to fight them and go to court. But I feel that I have to take a stand, because ultimately, if it becomes known in our organisations that, Matt's a total pushover, if you just send him a few legal letters, you'll be able to get 5 grand, 10 grand, then before you know it, it's open season for everyone to try and have a pop at me. If I know we're in the right, even if it's going to be more expensive to fight these cases, I'll always fight them. I remember one guy years ago now, back in my nightclub days, must be 2006, 2007, something like that. We employed this guy, and historically he was a doorman at one of the venues. It was a venue we bought. We never started this from scratch. We bought it, so we effectively inherited it. And anyone who's ever bought a business before, you'll know the word TUPE, T-U-P-E, which is, for those of you that don't know, it's Transfer of Undertakings, Protection of Employment. That's what it stands for. And it basically means that you're inheriting the staffing contracts. So if someone's worked in that business for 4 or 5 years, or even more worryingly, 20 years, then you inherit them. And just because you've only bought it today doesn't mean that they start their employment from today. You're inheriting those many, many years of service, which ultimately means you've got many, many years of costs and liabilities. And we took this business on, and there was this doorman who'd become a manager. And I mean, he was just the utter epitome of a stereotypical doorman, rude, aggressive, bullying, controlling. I mean, he was wrong to be a doorman. I mean, it's never mind a manager, but he found his way into this managerial position, and he was robbing us blind. I mean, not even in a subtle way. I mean, literally just running his own till on a Saturday night, taking money off the bar. I mean, I forget the figures, but he was robbing us for, a grand plus a week. Had been going on and on and on. We found out about it, and we fired him on the spot. Now, legally in the UK, you can't do that. You have to suspend someone, you have to do an inquiry, you have to get all the evidence together and give them the chance to present their defence, etc., etc. But I thought, fuck that. I don't give a fuck what the law says on it. The guy's robbing me. He's been robbing us for weeks, if not months. He's been robbing the old business too. I just need him out of the business. So we fired him, and he took us to an employment tribunal, and I forget the numbers, so it doesn't really matter, but he was trying to sue us for 10, 15, 20 grand because we hadn't followed the process, because we hadn't done the things right. Ultimately, I wanted to stand on and fight it so that, I guess other people know that we're serious and, not to try and take the piss, in that situation. But, just as kind of come to my head as I'm talking, but as an aside in that kind of a situation, I always think that the cost of keeping a bad employee is normally more expensive than the cost of any legal action, etc. So if we'd have done that properly and kept him in the business, it could have cost us many more 5s and 10s and 15s of thousands of pounds while he was still allowed to do his job, or while he was still allowed to collect wages, or while other people were scared or demotivated or demoralised, etc. So I do think, when you find a serious situation like that, when you find a bad egg, fuck what the employment law says. Just get rid of them. Do what you can sleep at night doing or knowing. So yeah, we sidetrack a little. But I was saying at the beginning as well about being sued. So I mean, look, for me, 20 years of being sued, 20 years of suing people, it's kind of water off a duck's back. I've been speaking to quite a few friends, acquaintances, people I do business with over the last few weeks who are also involved in legal claims at the moment, and they get very, very stressed about it. I think, for me, they're stressed about it because they haven't been there before. I'm not saying for 1 minute I enjoy it or that I want to do these things, but I think like anything, once you've experienced something, it becomes easier the second time round, the third time round. I guess almost like a muscle in the gym that, with the first time you work it, it's heavy, but as time goes on, it gets easier and gets easier. I think for me as well, fear of anything comes from the unknown. If you don't understand the legal processes, if you don't know how these things are going to play out, it can be a lot more worrying, because you receive that legal letter, you find out that someone's suing you, and you think, oh my God, I'm going to lose everything immediately overnight. And it's absolutely never like that. These things take time to play out. During that time, you've got time to make contingency plans, get your house in order, etc., etc. So, as long as you know the game, as long as you know how it's going to play out, that should remove a lot of the worry. And obviously, you've got to have good legal advice around you during these times as well. And I think ultimately you can't pay too much for the right legal advice. Again, over the years, I've probably made the mistakes of going to people because going to lawyers because they may have been more cost effective than other law firms. But I'd never make that mistake now. Yes, you might be able to get something a couple of grand cheaper, depending on the quantum of the case, 10 grand cheaper, 20 grand cheaper elsewhere. But what you really want in these situations is the absolute best. And if you're suing someone else, then you can probably claim a lot of those legal fees back. And if someone's suing you, then you need to know that that you're going to be getting the best defence possible. And I gave someone an analogy the other day, which I forget exactly what we were talking about, but I was saying, look, maybe for £2,000 you could hire the local doorman, the local bouncer, to protect your kid, and he looks big and he's strong and he can probably tackle most people. But for 10 grand you could hire a current MMA champion, someone who trains 8 hours a day, who's been put under every piece of stress, every possible circumstance. Yes, he's 5 times more expensive. Yes, the other one can probably just about do the job, but this one, he really, really can do the job. Who would you want to protect your kid? And I think, for me, it's the same thing when it comes to legal advice. You want the best, and you've got to pay whatever it takes. I think as well, when it comes to losing things, another reason why I've never really been worried about the loss is because I don't get too emotionally attached to the money. That's not to say I don't love the money, because obviously I do, but I think it's important to love the game and let the money be a byproduct of that. And if all you really love is the money, then you'll always be too scared to make moves and to play the game. And you'll I guess just like in a game of poker, you've got to make the right moves at the right time, regardless of what the money in play is at that moment. And maybe you've been losing hand after hand after hand after hand, and you're just really feeling on the back foot. And when you look at your cards, what the play is. You should put all your money into the middle of the table, but you just don't do it, not because the cards aren't right, but because you feel scared of losing the money, because you've been on a bad run. I think same kind of thing in business, same kind of thing in life and legal affairs. You've got to do what feels right. You've got to play the game the way that it should be played. And I think again, another reason I've never really been scared of losing money. I mean, this goes back to my bankruptcy days of 2008, 2009, was that I always know I've got a skill set that I can wake up with the next day and monetize and get back to work. Whether that's my skill set, whether that's my network, whether that's now my personal brand, etc. I know if I lost everything today, then tomorrow I would be able to get back to work straight away. Now, look, I'm not trying to trivialize that and say that I really don't care at all, because obviously I do. And I'm not saying that tomorrow, if I lost everything today, I would be able to immediately wake back up with Lamborghinis or boats or be jumping on a private jet. Obviously I wouldn't. But I know that there would never be a time where I couldn't pay the rent, where I couldn't put food on the table, where I couldn't have the foundations to rebuild pretty quickly. I look at that first bankruptcy back in 2008, 2009, and it probably took me, let's say, less than 12 months to rebuild everything I'd lost and more. And that's because, let's say, from the age of 18 to 28, when I went bankrupt, 27, 28, I was learning. That was 10 years of learning. When I started again from scratch with the bankruptcy, I already had that 10 years of knowledge, that 10 years of learning in me, so I could get back to work very quickly. If I lost everything today, then I'd wake up tomorrow with 25 years of business knowledge, 25 years of contacts. Now, obviously, from a personal branding perspective, doing this kind of stuff with podcasts and Instagram and people that know me, 4, 5, 6 years of personal brand behind me. I am utterly convinced that I would be back to earning 5-figure months pretty immediately, 6-figure month within a year. So that's also, I guess, a reason why I don't fear playing the game, and I don't fear standing on for what I think's right, and I won't let someone bully me, won't let somebody walk all over me. So yeah, that was a bit of a somber time. Let's go more upbeat and talk about AI. That's about the only other thing that's really been going on this week. I've been having a big play with some AI stuff. I have many open tabs in my Google Chrome, and I sat down last night when I got back to Dubai. I thought it's time to start closing some of these open tabs. Quite a few of them were different AI tools that I've been meaning to try. Some to do with writing, some to do with graphic design, but all things that are going to be super useful. I mean, if you're not, and I've said this a few times before, but I want to really start hammering on about it now. If you're not using AI yourself, if you haven't got you guys in your business using AI, then I mean, to say you'll be left behind is the understatement of the century, because what you can create now, the time that can be saved. I mean, I was messing around last night trying to create a prompt. I've probably spent 20 minutes, 25 minutes on this prompt. I want to spend another half hour on it today to get it completely finished. But I've been writing myself a prompt for ChatGPT that has helped me create a year. That's 365 days, because this prompt is about doing something every day. A whole year of content. I mean, stuff that, let's say pre-AI, it would take you days if not weeks to prepare for this. If you had a team doing it for you, it would be costing you thousands, if not tens of thousands of pounds in wages. Now, I'm not saying that will be utterly perfect when that prompt's finished. It's going to need a bit of human interaction, whether that's from me, whether it's from some people in the team. But the amount of donkey work, the amount of leg work that has been saved is just unbelievable. There really isn't any jobs out there now that can't be improved by AI in some way, shape or form. And I'm talking generically here because I am certainly no expert in it yet. But whether that's using AI to brainstorm and get ideas done quicker. If you're a video editor, for example, and you're using it to be able to push out 10, 20, 30, 40 clips when maybe you could have only done 1 or 2 clips during that time. Maybe you're a computer programmer and you're using AI to write the base code that would have taken you, hours, if not weeks or days to do before. And any of these things, whenever I look at AI, I never look at it as replacing a person. So you're using that video editor as an example. I don't think for 1 minute I would have AI to replace the video editor. I don't think for 1 minute I would have AI to replace having a copywriter. But what it would replace, I think, is having so many of those people. So if you want a quantum of output, then you're using the video editor example, maybe you would have had to have 4, 5, 6 video editors, whereas maybe you can just trim it back to 1 or 2, or say trim it back. Maybe you can now get your 1 video editor doing the job of 4 or 5 video editors. Maybe instead of having to have a team of 10 copywriters to be pumping out crazy amounts of content, maybe you can get the brainstorming and the general structures done on AI. And 1 copywriter can do the job of 5, 6, 10 people. I think, for me as well, when it comes to recruiting people now, when it comes to hiring, there's going to be certain roles, probably more roles than not, where I will insist that the people that we're hiring have got AI experience and AI ability, because I think, well, first of all, if they haven't got it now already, then they probably haven't got the right mindset anyway, because I think everybody should have started to implement it in some way. And also, I'd rather take someone who already has the skill set than have to train them on it. But take a graphic designer, for example. I'm thinking this because I was playing around with it this morning. It's a position we'll probably hire soon anyway, but I'm absolutely adamant now that I would not take a graphic designer on unless that was someone who has got current experience of using AI in their graphic designs. Because if we want pictures for blog posts or content to put on social media, etc., why would I have that person spending hours and hours and hours creating base images when we could literally in 30 seconds create a framework of something or a couple of images from AI, and then use that graphic designer to then take that and put their skill set on top and create something in, say, half an hour instead of a whole day. So whatever business it is you're in, have a think about all the positions, have a think about all the roles of either the people that you've already got or the people that you're hiring, and make sure that you're going to start to use AI as much as possible. And if you don't know about it yourself, there's plenty of people that you'll be able to hire, whether that's to train the organisation in general, whether it'll be to look at your operating procedures and talk about how you can implement AI, or whether it maybe is to help you on one individual project. I've got a few people I've been talking to, so if you're listening to this and you want any introductions, then reach out and I'll try and connect you where I can. But just you got to make sure you're using it, got to make sure you're implementing. I think that's about it for my week, really. Like I say, most of it's been taken up by this Croatia trip, where a bit of a holiday and a bit of work. It's good to get some sun. Everyone thinks living in Dubai, you're sunbathing every day anyway, but in the 45-degree heat we're in now, believe me, sunbathing is the last thing on my mind. But I've got another 10 days back here in Dubai, and then I'm off to Bali with the kids, both the kids. It'll be good to get Harley and Nelly playing together, because obviously they don't get oodles of time to do that. But I'll be in Dubai next Sunday, so you get one more weekly roundup from this week of Dubai. In the week coming, again, if you've followed me for a while, you know that I always like to really prep out my week ahead on a Sunday, and making sure all my meetings are in, making sure I've got my daily to-do lists, weekly to-do lists and stuff. So obviously, having not been here for a week or two, it's going to be a hectic week. But I'm in the office tomorrow, kicking ass with the staff, and then 2 or 3 days of meetings, a lot of paddle tennis, and I've got to get back into the gym as well. I hope you found some of that stuff interesting. Hope you found some stuff that you can implement. As always, if you've got any questions, if you've got any business issues that you're struggling with, reach out to me. If you've listened to this on audio, then you can always watch the video versions on YouTube. And if you don't already know, I have a weekly newsletter that goes out every Friday. Go over to my website, matt-haycox.com, and you'll find a box on there somewhere to subscribe to the newsletter. It goes out every Friday. There's about 18,000 of you at the minute that get it every week, and I normally answer a business problem that someone has emailed in with me that week, give you my answers, and also put a few links to other interesting things in there too. So if you don't subscribe already, make sure you do. And if you ever want me to give you some one-on-one advice, whether that's a particular problem with a business, whether you're trying to start a business, whether you're trying to end a business, whatever it may be, you can always book me for consultancy calls and coaching calls as well, in blocks of 15 minutes. I do a 15-minute, 30-minute or 1-hour call. You'll be amazed at what we can do in 15 minutes. I don't like small talk, so we get straight to the root of the problem, and I guarantee you a 10 times ROI. So if you fancy booking me, you'll find a link below this as well. And until next week, have a good time.